Hello everyone, and today we are back for another video, and we're going to be reacting to Cotton Stoops' top 20 PVP Loomians for February 2024. He just made this video yesterday, and I'm really excited to react to see what his top 20 is. And he ranked my list, and overall, I got an overall score of 6.2 out of 10. So I'm going to be ranking his, reviewing his picks, and I'm going to give him a score at the end of the video. So we're going to see how good this list is. I'm not sure how I'm going to review the list, but honestly, we're just going to watch this video. I haven't seen his video yet. I do not know what is in his top 20 list. So we're going to see. We're just going to turn on the video and just react to it as it goes. This video is 34 minutes long, so I'll either skip through parts of it, and who knows, I might watch throughout the whole thing, but we'll see. Let's start off Cotton Stoops' video, and we're going to review it.
Hello, this is Cotton Stoops, and welcome back to another Lumian Legacy.
And of course, his video and his channel will be in the link in the description below, alright? Because this guy makes great videos, and in my opinion, if Lumian Legacy needed another balancer, if Lumian Legacy wanted another PvP balancer with Jamie, C.B.O would be my option. This guy would probably be the guy I would pick as another balancer if Lumian Legacy needed another one. Just adding that out there. But yeah, let's start the video before this video is an hour long.
And today's video, we're going to be talking about the top 20 Lumians of Lumian Legacy. First off, I'm going to be going a few sets of rules here, and the only rule that you should be knowing here is that the Ubers are not going to be considered.
Alright, interesting. This is good to know. He's not counting Ubers in his top 20. That's good to know. That actually is very good to know. So, Metronet, Mutagon, Dragodyne, they won't count for the list, which that is very good to know, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with Ubers not being included. The only reason why I include Ubers, because a lot of the Ubers are really powerful, but some of the other Ubers I just don't think live up to Uber status. Like Cephalops, for example. Like, Cephalops is top 20 potential, but I don't know if it's Uber potential. I'll talk about that in another video, but yeah, that's the reason why I added Ubers to my top 20. But yeah, I agree with the Ubers not being included on the list. I'm fine with this.
Now, whether or not you think Dragodyne or like Cephalops are Ubers, most of the competitive metagame and communities have all considered these guys Ubers, so whether or not my opinions on them will be changing, depending on my experiences fighting them, these guys are staying Ubers.
Okay, that's also very good to know. Personally, I don't think Dragodyne and Cephalops are considered Ubers. I know why the communities are, though, because, you know, Dragodyne with, you know, +2 Draco Beam and Anomaly is very OP. Not many Lumians could swap into that. And Cephalops, of course, Soul Drain and Hypnotize with Icicle Traps is also pretty dangerous. Personally, I wouldn't consider them Ubers, but I understand why they are at the same time. Like, yeah, I don't think they're Ubers, but I know why, but I'm fine with him not talking about them. Personally, back in my top 20 list, I should have added Dragodyne to my top 20 because of how oppressively dangerous it is. Cephalops, on the other hand, I'm fine with it not being in the top 20. So, this is good to know.
However, I will be mentioning some of these Ubers by name in the honorable mentions, specifically Mutagon and Dragodyne, as they're going to be getting reworks to their abilities, which will, of course, change how they're going to play. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's get right along with the list.
Alright, we're heading on to the list. Here we go. 4 minutes in. Let's go. In his video, 55 seconds in. He's good at just getting to it. I like it. I like this. Let's head to it.
Alright, so Chienta wasn't actually supposed to be on the list. I forgot one Lumian, so Chienta will be going in the honorable mention section. Sadly, it's not going to be on this list, and something else will be on this list. So, yeah. Sorry.
Oh, no Chienta. Oh, it hurts. Chienta's really good. Chienta definitely has that top 20 potential. Let's see who we put on the list instead.
The real number 20th Lumian of this list is going to be... Next up, we're going to be talking about Falkyrie, which makes its place in the top 20 very reluctantly.
Ah, okay. Falkyrie at 20. This is interesting. Because I put this at number 7 in my starters list. And the thing is with Falkyrie is I still think it is a bottom 3 starter, which isn't saying much because all of the starters are really good. I mean, all of them are really good right now. Even Himber, who's considered the worst by many people. And I can understand the placement of Falkyrie. If you look at this metagame, there's a little thing called Tyranics. This is one of the few Loomians that is very good at beating Tyranics, which that's something that's huge. There's also a lot of other Loomians you could wall with Falkyrie as well. Like, you could wall Cleon, you could wall Jalusa. Like, there's a lot of good Loomians you could wall with Falkyrie, and it hits really hard, has an okay speed stat, and it has pivot. It also has really good range defense, and rejuvenate, so it does have some very good stuff. Would I have put it in my top 20? Maybe. I am thinking about remaking my top 20 list, because even though I like some of the placements, I do think there are some placements that I kind of regret, and I'll talk about that as this video goes on. So Falkyrie at 20. Let's see what he explains.
Falkyrie, I've been pretty harsh on as of late, and ever since the new Atlantean City Part 2 meta has came out. Falkyrie, ultimately, its speed tier is getting so much worse, and Falkyrie, as of right now, is ultimately not the best Loomian to use offensively, but because of how hard it can hit and how great it can support your teams. For example, Falkyrie has the ability to be able to stop metagame threats such as Nomadis, Glishadia, Cosmere Unleashed.
Yeah, the Cosmere forms as well. Glishadia, yeah, it's pretty good against Glishadia too. You still gotta be careful. If you don't run range defense, Glishadia could still be pretty tough. But yeah, that is a good point. It beats Glishadia, who's probably gonna be in the top 3 of this list. It beats Tyranics unless it runs Rant. It beats the Cosmere forms, but the Cosmere forms are OP, so yeah, this is really good. I like this place.
Charonics and much more, making Falkyrie a pretty good blanket check and an overall enabler for offense with Flash and Flee. What's also great about Falkyrie is that it still hits hard, and because this meta is mainly focused around semi-stall or baffle cores, Falkyrie can take advantage of both. Falkyrie being a part of a baffle core, or Falkyrie just breaking semi-stall, because its speed tier here isn't really that much of a problem when you're up against slower Loomians, and overall, Falkyrie is just a pretty great Loomian. There are some problems with it, such as its weaknesses, but
yeah, it does have a lot of weaknesses, but overall, it has a lot of Loomians it can wall, too.
Falkyrie, as a necessity on teams, as being one of the best metal types to use, is really great.
You know what? I'm fine with this. I'm fine with Falkyrie being 20, actually, because there are some times where I have to specifically add a Falkyrie to wall either Glishadia or a Tyranics, because a lot of my teams built are weak to Glishadia and Tyranics. So this is definitely a Loomian that I specifically add to a team, so I'm not specifically weak to it. I probably wouldn't have added Falkyrie in my top 20 list, but I actually like this spot. I think Cotton Stoops makes some pretty good points. And the fact that it also has pivot makes it really good as well. Flash and Flee pivot is really good. And since this Loomian hits so hard, it could still do a lot of damage even with resistant hits, even though its offensive typing is kind of trash. Personally, with this spot, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. I think this is a very good spot for Falkyrie. I'm really happy about this spot. I probably wouldn't have placed it on my list, but I can understand why Cotton Stoops put this at number 20, because this is a very good blanket check. I agree. This is a really good spot. I like this. Let's see who 19 is.
So next up on the list is going to be Htic. Htic.
Yes! Htic! Yes! 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 Great spot! Great choice! I like this spot.
This is also a very reluctant choice. This is mainly because Htic is kind of competing with another electric type wall breaker in this metagame, and because of that, Htic has kind of struggled to find a place, at least in my opinion, throughout this metagame. However,
okay, so yeah, he's also talking about the metagame as well. But yeah, I'm happy with Htic at 19. This is a good spot for it. This is a good spot.
It's still as great as it was once before. It didn't gain much counterplay in this meta, only like very robust Dokomori. Tundralin is also getting a little bit better, but overall, this still has one of the best coverages in terms of melee wall breaking.
Yeah, like, Htic has such good coverage. It has Thunder Crash, it has Gnarly Gash, Baneful Bash, Primal Slash. It can hit pretty much any Loomian in the game. And there's only a couple things that can wall Htic, and that's Himber and Tyrex. And those Loomians aren't really good in the meta right now. But even against those Loomians, you still have a move Poison. Like, you could drop Bulk Up and put Poison. And you could predict those two Loomians coming in by throwing a Poison at it. Like, you don't even have to run a defensive Htic to run Poison. You could run the aggressive or Pitch Black set and run Poison. It works very well to chipping Loomians that swap into it, like Tyrex and Himber.
You have Primal Slash from Sidrugon. You have other coverages against other offensive Loomians, and while said Loomians like Obsidian can still stop this thing because of resilience, this does pressure teams heavily because of bulk up, making it a lot more stronger and bulkier as the time goes on, with bulk up setting up every single time.
Yeah, it does have surprisingly good melee bulk. I think running bulk up on Helvantic's a decent option. I do think specialty boots Helvantic is still the best way to run it, especially on an aggressive set, but on a pitch black set, I could see it.
And because it does have a decent speed tier, this...
Yeah, 85 speed, that's the thing that helps Helvantic. And comparing the Loomians in this tier like Barbadger, I'm going to compare Helvantic to Barbadger. Barbadger does have Dauntless boost, but it also has a lower speed stat, and it also has weaker defenses overall. I think Helvantic is overall a little bit more dangerous than Barbadger, so I am happy that Helvantic's on the list. I wonder where he plays Barbadger, or if Barbadger's on this list or not, because if Helvantic's here, I wonder where Barbadger's is going to be. It's either going to not be on this list, or it's going to be higher up, but let's see.
Speed tier is getting somewhat more irrelevant as more offensive Loomians are getting faster than this. However, I believe that Helvantic, in terms of wanting a solid melee wall breaker that isn't reliant on other aspects of your team, I'd say that Helvantic is probably one of the best consistent answers for that question.
I'm fine with that. That's a good spot. I like Helvantic there. That's a 9 out of 10. That's an easy 9 out of 10 spot. You can't get much better than Helvantic at 19. I also think Helvantic's really good at just baffling it in. Like, you could use this with Baffle on your snack or Dokomore. You could use this with Flash and Fleet Cores with like Lumami and Nimere to swap it in. And it has very good overall bulk because of its high health stat. This is a very good spot. I like this. You can't get a much better spot. I think that's the best spot you could possibly place Helvantic. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. Let's head into number 18.
So next up on this list is going to be somewhat controversial, but I really don't think so, and that is Odyaga.
Alright, yep, okay, I agree. This is very controversial, because the thing is with Odyaga, how do you specifically use Odyaga? Maybe Cotton Stoops will explain, let's see.
Odyaga is ultimately probably much better than Shachi. Initially, once this released, I thought Shachi was just so much better, but as the metagame progressed and of course teams have started putting more thought into their team building, Odyaga has become much better because of its bulk that it has. 83, 109, and 73. While this may not look that great, in combination with Provoke, Peace of Mind, and your coverage, it makes Odyaga very strong.
Yeah, like, Odyaga has really good bulk. That's the thing that helps Odyaga a lot. Like, it has very good bulk on both sides, and it has very good ranged attack. And with the Hag ability, your Psycho Blast not only uses less energy, but it also makes it hit harder. So it's kind of like an Awakening boost kind of thing. I don't think it's quite as strong as Awakening, but still, it boosts your Psycho Blast, so it does even more damage than before. And I agree, I do think Odyaga is a little better than Shachi. Now, I still am not 100% sure how to run Odyaga, and that's the thing. That's the true beauty about Odyaga, is that you can run so many different moves. You can run Fire Breath, you can run Frost Beam, you can run Thunderstrike, depending on how your team is built and how your team competes with other teams. And you could run this with Peace of Mind, you could run melee moves to hit range walls, you can run Provoke as a stall breaker, you can run Scapegoat as a stall breaker. Like, there's a lot of different ways you could run Odyaga, and that is something that does make it good. And while I probably wouldn't place it in my top 20, I do think this is a decent spot. I do understand the placing. I just don't know how to fully utilize it. Like, what is its best role? Is it as a bulky stall breaker? Is it as a rageful plushie Loomian? Is it as a boots Loomian? Is it as a kind of like a bulkier Shachi type Loomian? Like, I still am not 100% sure what Odyaga's best role is. Although, with Peace of Mind, I'm thinking about it, you could set up one Peace of Mind, and this thing can be very bulky on both sides. That is something that I didn't really get until looking at its base stats.
Speaking of that coverage, it also has a lot of coverage moves it can choose from. You can choose from Frost Beam, Fire Breath, and Dark Surge, and much more.
Yep, Spectral Burst, Shrewd Blast. Like, there are a lot of good options for Odyaga. It just depends on how your team is built. Like, you could replace Thunderstrike with other moves, depending on, one, either how the meta shifts or how your team is built. Like, that's the true beauty about Odyaga. You don't know who you're going to go up against until the Odyaga uses that move.
And more so on Provoke, let's talk about this. Provoke has the ability with in tandem with its defenses to break through a lot of answers, such as Soulburst Gastroke and Pyrolint and Cleon. Those Loomians are no longer threats to Odyaga because it can just provoke and set up on them. Odyaga is ultimately probably one of the best Loomians in terms of fighting semi-stall because its bulk, specifically on its range defense, looking like to be a pretty dang hard issue to deal with, now isn't really that hard anymore because of your matchups against more bulkier teams. What's also great about Odyaga is that it can generally stop a lot of support moves going around, whether that would be hazards, baffle, and much more.
Yeah, it's an air type, so it doesn't actually take damage from poison barbs and barbs. Icicle traps you still gotta be a little careful for though.
Which is ultimately very great. You can mix and match its coverage to hit Loomians and other stuff that your team is weak to, which is ultimately very great. And because of how consistent this Loomian is in this meta, I'm going to be putting it in the top 20.
I'm fine with this. At first that was a little bit debatable, but I think C.B.O has gotten my appeal. I still haven't tried Peace of Mind and Provoke on the same set. I think I just used 4 moves. I think I will try that set. I will try that, Provoke Peace of Mind, because I do think that could really make Odyaga very dangerous. I don't think this is a bad spot. He makes some good points. Would I have put it on the list? Probably not. But I think there are some good points here. Reason why Odyaga, especially with the meta being semi-stall, this is definitely one of the best Loomians to break that. And now that I finally kind of understand its role a little bit more, I can see why it's in this list. I'm fine with this. I'm going with a 7 out of 10 with this pick. 7 out of 10.
So the next Loomian is definitely going to be somewhat controversial because of...
Wow, 2 Loomians in a row.
...how low it may seem, but I'm going to be explaining right now. Next up, we have Cleon.
Okay, this one... Alright, I don't know. I don't know about Cleon, because the thing is with Cleon, there's so much good with it, but there's also so much that isn't that good. It doesn't have a great defensive typing. It has screens, which is good, and it has decent coverage. I mean, it has strategy on to hit hard, has Tsunami to hit Tyrex and, Soulburst Eruptodon, which is good. And it also has Dissipate, making it a very good pivot. I don't think this is too low. I think this is a decent spot for Cleon.
Cleon has cemented itself to be a pretty essential Loomian on most bulky teams and general offense and balance in general.
Yep, balance teams. I feel like this is good. I actually think Cleon is better for hyper-offensive teams, actually. And the reason why is because the ability of it for placing screens. You can place screens down, you can dissipate back into your hyper-offensive Loomian, set up, and then potentially sweep. That's the thing. I feel like as good as Cleon is just as an overall tank, I think it might be even better on hyper-offensive games.
Cleon has a lot of support moves that it can support its team with, that being Gust to remove hazards, enchantments, which albeit aren't that great as people.
The thing is with enchantments is that you have an ability that boosts the number of turns, and you could dissipate. You could place one, and then dissipate into another Loomian. That's the thing. You still have 4 turns of screens up once you dissipate from Cleon.
People were making out to be in the beginning, but it's still great there. And it also has the ability of having to stop offensive threats in this metagame, such as Soulburst, Eruptodon, and Jalusa.
Oh yeah, this counters Jalusa. That's good actually, because this is one of the few Loomians. Problem is that, I don't know, does it really counter Jalusa? You could place screens on it and dissipate out, but the biggest problem is that it doesn't hit Jalusa hard in return. Just because you're something that can wall a certain Loomian doesn't make it a counter. You need it. A counter is something that not only walls or checks it, but it also beats it in return. And I don't think Cleon can beat Jalusa in return, because Jalusa has very good range bolt. So, yeah. I kind of disagree with that.
Both of those Loomians being very great in this metagame. What's also good about Cleon is that it also has very good damage output with Stratagem, which I don't have with this moveset, and this...
RIP! Yeah, this thing has Rejuvenate too. Yeah, this thing has some good moves.
Moveset, overall, just don't use it. And overall, Cleon is just one of the best Loomians in terms of range walling prowess. Anyways, now that we're done closing off the Top 5 Lumians in the latter half of the tier list. Let's talk about top 10 through top 15.
Alright, I don't like this placement as much as the other three, because I feel like, I don't know where I would place Cleon. I don't know. It's either 20 through 16 or off the list, in my opinion. Personally, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I'm fine with it being 16. I'm not going to argue with it. I think it's a good spot. But I do think some of the points made aren't the best. I do think there are some points that were missed. I do think this fits better on hyper-offensive teams. And I think this does do well with screens. There's also the Repugnant set, which actually makes you a very good overall tank. And you could swap into chomping moves and get them poisoned. Like, there's a very good support option there. Not saying that you should use that set, but it's another option that can make Cleon pretty dangerous. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I like where it's placed, but I don't like the points of Cleon in the video that much.
Now, this Lumian is very controversial in my opinion.
3 controversial Lumians in a row. 3 of them.
Because it is pretty clear to me, at least just in how I see it and a few others, is that Lumami, the next Lumian on this list...
Best spot! 10 out of 10! 10 out of 10. Oh, actually, wait. Did I mess up my list? So, yeah, that's 20, 19, 18, 17. This is 16, right? That's 16. Wait, so... I'm gonna have to redo this on the list, but yeah. 16, 10 out of 10. That's a 10 out of 10 pick. 16 and 15. That's the best spot for Lumami. You can't pick better than that. That's, yep, the perfect. Perfect. That's where I place Lumami. That's where it should be. I agree. This is Melee Nami, too.
Is kind of falling out of irrelevancy.
Falling out of irrelevancy, though? No, I don't agree with that.
Not because this Lumian is bad or anything, but the other water light type in this metagame, Jalusa, is being preferred over it.
Really? Jalusa? Like... The thing is with Jalusa is that it has 92 speed, it has good range defense, but the problem is with Jalusa is that it's mainly used as, like, bulky offense. Like, people use Rageful Plushie and Champion Coat. And while Jalusa is better at soaking hits compared to Luminami, the problem is with Jalusa is that it doesn't have those extra options. Luminami has Power Napper and Flash and Flee. You can literally swap out of Luminami and you get free HP back. Like, that's really OP. That's the reason why Luminami, I still use Luminami all the time. The biggest problem with Jalusa is that once you're Rageful, you only have one shot with Rageful Plushie. And once it's used, you're either going to get revenge killed by another Lumian, or you have to swap out and save it for later. Plus, Jalusa doesn't have an easy way to heal. It only has 2 ways to heal. Soft Water and Lusterloot. Lusterloot doesn't do that much damage, but it's good at healing your health. And Soft Water is just not consistent enough. Personally, I think Luminami is better than Jalusa, which scares me. Because I wonder where he puts Jalusa on the list. Oh gosh, so right.
But let's just talk about this Lumian really quickly. Everyone knows why this Lumian is so good. It has very great coverage on...
Yep, and it has Rejuvenate, and it has good coverage. The thing that makes Luminami good is that, even though it's not the biggest offensive threat, it does still do a decent amount of damage. If you could hit the opposing Lumian super effectively, it will 2-shot most Lumians. And that's the thing I like about Luminami compared to other pivots like Yursnak. Because Yursnak, you can hit something super effectively and it can live 3 hits. So there's not really that offensive threat there. And I know that Yursnak's role is mainly used as a bridge to another Lumian. But the problem is once that Lumian is dead, you have just Yursnak left. And Yursnak can't win a battle by itself. Luminami, if you really needed it to, you can have this as the last Lumian on your team, and it can win a battle. So, I'm fine with this spot on the list, 16. He said 15, though. He put Cheyenne at 20. Which, I don't know if Cheyenne at 20 is his 20 spot or not. We'll see.
On the melee side and range side, depending on what you want to use, it can basically hit most things super effectively.
Which, yeah, that's good. I think this is a good spot for Luminami. I'm going to skip ahead. There's not really any other points to make with Luminami. I'm just going to skip ahead to number either 15 or 14. I don't know, but let's say.
Nami. Other than that, we do have another Lumian, which is going to be Dakuda. This moveset is pending. I'm personally trying out different movesets, but Dakuda at least to me, has still stayed up in its high prowess of tiers that I've basically
This is the Lumian he's forgot, I assume, because he didn't say a specific number on the list. I feel like this is the Lumian he forgot.
mentioned for quite a lot. Dakuda is not a lot of walls if you're running this correctly. For example, Dakuda, if you're running the Gamma Pulse over this, it basically has probably one of the best coverages in the game because
Yeah, I agree with this. Best coverage in the game. I agree. You have Water Electric Stab with Dark Light coverage. That's insane. And the thing that makes Dakuda so good is that you don't know which Dakuda you're going to go up against. You could go up against Soul Burst Dakuda that hits like a truck, or you can go up against normal Dakuda that's a lot faster and hits harder on the melee side. Torrential Slash is also an amazing water stab move. And Slapdown as a dark option to hit plant types is good. Like, even on a Soul Burst Dakuda, it's still worth having Slapdown as a coverage for those pesky plant types. Like, its moves just work very well on each other.
you're basically relegated to using Soul Burst Florant, Dokomori, and a few others in order to stop Dakuda.
Not just any Dokomori, but a sponge Dokomori to counter it.
Which is ultimately very great. And because of its unpredictability, this is also including Soul Burst by the way, with its unpredictability, you don't really know what Dakuda is going to be doing at all times. You don't know if it's Soul Burst, you don't know if it's actually a regular Dakuda set. That mind games on its own can prove to be very detrimental to your team. What's also great about Dakuda, more on that mind game specifically, you can particularly use a few of these movesets and not the other side of the moveset and then just go ham when the opponent least suspects it.
Yeah, like, that's the thing. Dakuda's very unpredictable. It gives me a lot of Nova Diaz vibes. Like, Nova Diaz is one of those Lumians you could run next, and it can be very hard to beat.
Overall, Dakuda, from my experience and from others' experiences, along with some team building, looks to be one of the best Soul Bursts as of right now, especially for the non-Soul Burst section of Lumians that do have Soul Bursts.
Alright, so, yeah, I don't know, because the thing is with Dakuda, is I think its non-Soul Burst is really good as well, and its Soul Burst is really good. I think they both can compete for each other. Now, is Dakuda better than Lumami? Maybe in this meta it is because of that coverage. I don't know. Dakuda definitely has top 20 potential. I don't know if it's top 15, but top 20 potential. I think I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10 because I think this is a good... I don't know. Over Lumami though? No, I'm gonna reduce the score. 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. I'm going to be in the middle with this. 5 out of 10. So that's his 15.
Next up, it's everyone's favorite Lumian, Zulong.
Okay, red flag showing here. The thing is with Zulong is that it's a very good Lumian casually, but competitively, it has stuff, like it has Zip Zap. Fire Breath is really good. It's very fast. This is the standard fast late game cleaner. You could use this as a lead with Ancient Roar and Zip Zap and pivot out. You can even run this with specialty boots as well, and it's the fastest boots Lumian in the game. Although, I don't think many people use boots Zulong. But the biggest problem is that there's a lot of range tanks. There's a lot of range tanks. And while you could hit other Lumians that walled you in the past, like Kimber and Tyrex, there's still Lumians like Venolin, Pyrolid, and Setomars that could still beat you pretty well. And also Gargoyle Defense Form does pretty good against you too, and that's a meta Lumian. That's a Lumian that everyone's going to use. Chironix as well does decent against it as well. Like, Chironix doesn't counter it, but it can swap in a couple times on it. So, I don't know. I disagree with this being in the top 20. It has top 20 potential, though. I'll give it that.
And Zulong, I've actually debated a bit on putting it higher on this list, but overall, I think in the 10 to 15 range is perfectly fine for it.
I would say more of 16 to 20 range.
First off, Zulong is a little bit worse off in this meta, specifically because this meta is very bulky, and Zulong can't really break through a bunch of the stuff anymore.
Exactly. Like, that's why I don't think it should be this high on the list. I do think 14 is a little too high.
But it still has pretty solid pivot in Ancient Roar.
Yeah, the pivot does help it, though. The fact it can pivot Ancient Roar into another Lumian, that is definitely something Zulong has over other Lumians. Like, that's really good.
And pretty good coverage overall. This is still very team building restricting in this metagame, as you're either forced to run Soulburst Gas Stroke, Gargoyle Defense, very clever Cleones.
Yeah, Cleone, yeah. Honestly, I do think, I don't know. There's a lot of things that soak Zulong. And while Ancient Roar can't get blocked, Zip Zap does. And I don't know. This might be the first bad spot, in my opinion. I don't think it's the worst. I'm okay with Zulong being on the list. I just think it's a little too high.
Pyrolin, and a few others in order to keep your team safe from Zulong, and the metagame is actually shifting in a way where Zulong running Chili Chomp is actually very good.
You're right, because it can actually hit Gas Stroke on its weaker side. Like, Chili Chomp Zulong is an option. You can run it, and it's good for Soulburst Gas Stroke.
Especially against bulkier teams that are utilizing Soulburst Gas Stroke or Gargoyle Defense in order to be their Zulong stops. And Zulong, as always, being a pretty good Loomian to be a pretty good revenge killer or cleaner, it does that job pretty well. And overall, Ancient Roar is still the same as it was before, and Zulong, with this garbage, still hits as hard as before. It just has a few more answers to deal with, and this metagame isn't fit for it being the top tier. Zulong is still a pretty good Loomian either way.
Yep, I'm fine. Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. I'm in the middle with this. I like the points he's made. Zulong does hit pretty hard. I am okay with Zulong being on the list. I like it, but I also think it's a little too high, and I do think that everyone is going to have at least one or two of those Meta Loomians that counter Zulong on every team. So I'm gonna stick in the middle, and I'll say 5 out of 10 for this pick.
Next up, we're going to be talking about Nevermare.
Okay, oh boy! This one's going to be fun!
And Nevermare has proved itself to be really threatening. I really don't know how it took this long for Nevermare to be this good, but Nevermare is
this long? Nevermare was very good at the beginning.
Finally realized to be one of the best Loomians in this metagame. This is all because of its defensive typing.
Yeah, its defensive typing is very good. I agree with that, but it can't really hit anything nowadays.
This Nevermare is not finished, as you can see, wrong moveset.
Has Provoke on it. I actually forgot that. When did Nevermare get Provoke? When did Nevermare get Provoke? I didn't even know it had it.
Some guy that I got it from completely messed up the TPs, but anyways.
Yeah, whopping 48 TPs on the ranged attack! Ranged Nevermare! Let's go! Ranged Nevermare!
Nevermare is very great because of its solid bulk. You'd think that 61 HP would hold this back very hard, but because of its great defensive typing, being able to resist important typing such as Electric, Immune to Light, and Brawler, and much more, makes Nevermare pretty great.
Yeah, Nevermare is a very good late game cleaner, and it has really good bulk. And after a bulk up, this could be a very good Raidful Plushie Loomian as well, because it has 111 speed, you could set up a bulk up, get your Raidful Plushie off, and you're up to +3. I've seen a lot of people use Raidful Plushie on Nevermare because of that, and its range defense is so high, it can usually live one super effective hit, which is very good for Nevermare, although, I don't know, like, the problem is with Nevermare is the moves themselves. Like, Phantom Slash is 70 power, Primal Slash is 80, Pistol Slash is 70, and while they're there to get boosted by the critical hit, it's really inconsistent. You either need the Rageful Plushie item to be popped off in order to hit hard, or rely on the critical hit, which does help if both happens, but I don't know, it's a little inconsistent, at least compared to Loomians like Zulong, which has more damage immediate.
Along with Bulk Up and Razor Sharp, let's just go over Razor Sharp real quick. Razor Sharp,
well, I know what his next Loomian on the list is, thanks for showing me.
Will be able to break through a bunch of melee defense.
By the way, we're 33 minutes into the video already, this might be an hour long.
Loomians. With enough setup, specifically if you bulk up on a swap, you can break Loomians such as Obsidian a lot more easier, and that's ultimately pretty great. Loomians or teams in this metagame are even running Loomians such as Seer Knight over their metal type slot just so they can stop Nevermare a lot more easier.
Yeah, Nevermare, the thing is with Nevermare is it has no way to heal its health. So you gotta focus on you either have to specifically use Nevermare as a late game cleaner, or you gotta you got to use it on certain threats, or use it early in the game where they have more threats and more chances to pop your Raidful Plushie. You could still run other moves as well, but I do feel like Rageful Plushie might be the best item to run on this. Like, it's better compared to Rageful Plushie Jalusa, because Jalusa is just a lot slower and its coverage isn't as good.
And while Nevermare still does get answered by a melee defense Loomian, such as Obsidian, like I said, you can also count in Conjurelin in that as well. And Bar Blast, Nevermare still applies pressure so well. Because of Razor Sharp being unpredictable and critting, it has overall good coverage. Replace Provoke for Primal Slash. Please replace Provoke for Primal Slash.
Or just replace Bulk Up for Provoke. Make it a stall breaker.
And a pretty solid enough defensive typing and defensive base stats. It overall just makes Nevermare a lot more better. Anyways, speaking of Obsidian answering Nevermare, Obsidian is the next Loomian.
Alright, so Obsidian is next. So, alright, so number 13, I don't know, Nevermare? I'm counting Nevermare. I'm not talking about Obsidian yet. But for Nevermare, 5 out of 10. I'm in the middle with it too, because the thing is, on one hand, I could see it being very good with the right item and with the right team, and as a late game cleaner, I could see it be very good. But it also, in certain situations, is really unreliable, very unpredictable because of the Razor Sharp not critting, and I don't know, its moves that it has aren't the best, so I'm going with a 5 out of 10. And that being higher than Zulong too, I don't know. Now let's get to Obsidian, who's 12.
Don't mind this moveset or personality, and anyways, Obsidian still proves itself to be very strong in.
Yeah, he got upset with me placing Obsidian at number 9. This is at number 12. Like, this is a good spot for Obsidian. I like this. This is a good spot. I'm going to rank this pretty fast. I don't think there's anything that we have to explain here. Obsidian is really good. Might lose Body Crash in the future, but it's very good. I think this is a good spot for Obsidian. I'm fine with this. I'm going to go with a 9. I'm debating 8 or 9. I think I'm going to go with an 8. Because I do think, I don't know, I think an 8's a good option for Obsidian at 12. Because I do think it could be a tiny bit higher. So that's why it's 8. I don't think we have to go too much into Obsidian. We could skip through his section.
Matchups that Obsidian has. So the first Loomian kicking off the...
Okay, so Cheyenne is number 20. Dang, Cheyenne is number 20? Oh, okay, that's rough, because... Okay, so Cheyenne is the number 20 spot. Okay, so I did everything wrong then. So, so Obsidian's 11. Okay, I'm gonna make that 9 out of 10 then. And Nevermare is... Oh gosh, Nevermare is in that spot. 5, 5, 5, 10, 6, 7, 9, 7. I'm just changing the scores real quick. I now gotta think about Cheyenne at 20. Cheyenne at 20. Ah! Okay. Cheyenne, I agree, should be on the list. But, oh my gosh. Lower than Nevermare? Lower than Nevermare? Like, if we just forget that Nevermare is the number 12 spot, I think Cheyenne is a 8 out of 10. I think it should be higher, because Brawn has a very fast speed stat, especially if you run very nimble. You have Broad Boost, and you have Priority. Like, Cheyenne has honestly top 10 potential. That's one of the Loomians I wanted to add on my list. But yeah, I'll give that an 8 out of 10. So, alright, good to know. Cheyenne is in the top 20. Good to know.
The top 10 is obviously Jalusa.
Oh my gosh, I'm banging my head on my table with this pick. And Jalusa is a very controversial Loomian. I even made a post saying that Jalusa sucked because I didn't know how to use it, and it didn't do well in my showcase video. And then I got hate from the whole entire PvP community. We literally had one of the admins from the meta-analysis server call me an idiot and saying that my videos are not worth watching and that I do these posts for attention, which I'm not. Jalusa just didn't do well for me. And honestly, I hate that. And honestly, I might just give Jalusa a 0 out of 10 just for that. But, alright, biased aside, Jalusa is a one-of-a-kind Loomian. It's a fast Loomian that's really bulky. I mean, 92 for a Loomian with that insane range bulk is amazing. Like, this Loomian is one-of-a-kind when it comes to that kind of stuff. I mean, it being a relatively fast Loomian with good range bulk is one-of-a-kind. I don't think there's any other Loomian in the game that has that kind of bulk and that kind of speed. This also has a very good defensive typing. Water Light, just like with Lumami. Very good defensive typing. But I do think it's worse than Lumami because, again, Lumami has Power Napper, it has Flash and Flea Pivot, and while Jolusa has Flash and Flea Pivot, it doesn't have reliable healing. And while it does have Rageful Plushie Enchanted Coat, the biggest problem I tend to run with Enchanted Coat Rageful Plushie is that a lot of teams I face always have 2 or 3 Revenge Killers. It's a lot of offensive Loomians, the teams I've battled, and trying to showcase Jolusa has been a nightmare, because the thing is, Jolusa needs Rageful Plushie and 1 Magnify, plus 2 isn't enough. Because Luster Loot, you either run Luster Loot to get health back, which you need on Jolusa because of the bulk, or you run Gamma Pulse and you're too low and get Revenge killed anyway. Like, that's kind of the problem with Jolusa. You need a Magnify and a Rageful Plushie, which is very hard. And while there are good ways to get this thing in, like bringing this in on Eruptodon, Soulburst Eruptodon, this is one of the best counters for Soulburst Eruptodon. Not only could it get Rageful Plushie off, but it also outspeeds it, and it hits it quad effectively, which is very good. And the fact that it has Deep Freeze to hit plant types like Tatab, Gastroke, and air types, that's very good for it. Like, it has decent moves, but I just don't think it's good enough. It's not better than Lumami. I'm sorry. I've given this Lumian quite a few chances, but the Rageful Plushie set just is overrated in my opinion. Personally, I honestly would go out of my way and say the defensive set or a secret ability boot set might be better, just because it could actually utilize Flash and Flea. Like the defensive set, you know, you could utilize that range bulk while still outspeeding Soulburst Eruptodon and pivoting out, or you could use Boots with Incandescent to hit hard with Flash and Flea, use it as a fast pivoter, and go into a bulky Lumion. So I think those sets are overall better. And while that does give Jolusa a lot of extra options, I don't know. I don't think it's that good. It can live super effective hits really well, though. But overall, I don't think it's good enough. It's a 2 out of 10. 2 out of 10 with Jolusa. No way it should be higher than Luminami. I'm sorry.
There is really nothing wrong with Jolusa as of this moment. Please.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, again, I understand his point.
Please don't use this set, guys. Please don't use Incandescent. But anyway.
Don't use Incandescent? Really? Incandescent Boots! Incandescent Boots! You have 92 speed and nimble!
Anyways, Jolusa, as of right now, is probably one of the best offensive Lumians in terms of setting up and matchups in this metagame.
Okay, fair.
Jolusa has a lot of great matchups, specifically against Soulburst Eruptodon.
Yes, I agree. Soulburst Eruptodon is running wild right now. And this is one of the best Lumians to stop it. Good point.
Which is ultimately very good. Jolusa is so offensively threatening because of Enchanted Coat, making it so it can pretty much beat most range attackers in the game.
Yep, it can, but again, those range attackers are just gonna hit you with a non-super effective move, and then they're gonna be weak, and then you use the super effective move, either die to it, or live at red health, Lusterloo go back to yellow, Revenge Killer comes in. That's what happens every single time I use Jolusa. I don't think I've ever got into a situation where Jolusa could set up and sweep. And that's the thing. When I look at Lumians like Jolusa, I always look at their floor and ceiling. A lot of people just look at their ceiling and their potential. And I feel like that's a big reason why people consider Dragodyne an Uber. But I look at its floor as well. And Jolusa probably has one of the worst floors. At worst, this Lumian does nothing. That's a huge problem. If there's not a Soulburst Eruptodon on the other side, this isn't going to swap in and soak hits as well. Like, that's the thing. Jolusa has a very low floor. It either does nothing or it sweeps. There kind of isn't really an in-between other than KOing one Lumian and getting Revenge killed. For certain teams, Jolusa is extremely dangerous. But you could say that with pretty much any Lumian in the entire game.
You're basically forced to run Gastroke, Cleon...
Gastroke's weak to it, by the way.
Or Tatab or Nevermare.
Cleon doesn't do much to it in return. Cleon doesn't work neither.
As checks for Jolusa. And
Nevermare doesn't work neither.
That on its own is very scary. Not to mention that on more bulkier teams that Jolusa can also be playing the role as the stall breaker where
That is one thing as well. I do think there aren't many good defensive options for Jolusa. So once it does get it set up with Magnify and Rageful Plushie, there are no Lumians that can't swap in. So that is something I do want to add. Maybe I'll give a bonus point. Instead of 2 out of 10, I'll go 3 out of 10. I'm convinced.
Jalusa can be running Peace of Mind, 2 of its stab moves, and then Provoke, making it...
Oh yeah, it runs Provoke too. What would you drop for Provoke though? Tsunami maybe? Luster Loot? I don't know. It kind of suffers from 4-move syndrome, kind of like 80% of the Loomians in this game. But yeah, I think that's the best. But yeah, I think Jalusa's okay, but there's no way it's in the top 10. I think it's OU. I think it should stay OU. But top 10? I don't know. Like, it's decent for this meta, but I do think there are a lot of flaws with it that hold it back. I think its floor. It has a very low floor. I'm going with 3 out of 10. I don't like this pick. I don't like it at all. And also, for people saying... Also, for the person that said I was an idiot, no, I'm not. Move on.
Peace of Mind, Jalusa is going to be applying so much pressure. So the Loomian following Jalusa is going to be Ferroglyph, and...
Alright, more red flags. The thing is with Ferroglyph is that it is like Nova Diaz. It's very unpredictable. You can run Idiosyncratic, and you can run Temper. You don't know which Ferroglyph you'll be up against until it actually uses a move, which does make Ferroglyph pretty dangerous. It's either weak on the melee side or on the range side. You don't know that, which that makes Ferroglyph pretty scary. And while the Temper one is a lot better than the Idiosyncratic one, the Idiosyncratic one is an option. And Ferroglyph has some very good coverage moves. I feel like the biggest reason why people don't use Ferroglyph more is because it doesn't get any extra stars. You gotta waste so many shards to make a Ferroglyph good. And I do tend to notice that you kind of need 1 Piece of Mind in order for this to be very dangerous. Thankfully, it does have a decent speed stat. I mean, it has 106. It's pretty fast. But it does get outsped by some late-game cleaners and by a lot of the specialty boots Loomians. It is something to keep in mind.
Ferroglyph, I've been hard on lately, but overall, this is probably one of the best sweepers in this metagame.
It is a pretty good sweeper, I agree. It is a pretty good sweeper. The best sweeper in the metagame, though? I don't know. That's a little too much, I think.
If not the best sweeper. After testing this Loomian out, team building around it, and overall analyzing this, I've determined that all my thoughts about it were pretty much wrong. Ferroglyph against bulkier, semi-stall teams is one of the best matchups because of Provoke, Psycho Blast, and Peace of Mind.
The thing that does help Ferroglyph as well is that it has 106 speed, so most of the time, it will be able to get its Provoke off compared to other Provoke users. Like, faster Provoke users are a lot better because you could... There's a better chance for you to use your Provoke over another Provoke limit. So, like, if you had this against, like, a Zeppelin, for example, who has, like, 87 speed, you're going to get your Provoke off first, which is very good for Ferroglyph. Although, again, why would you use Provoke on a Zeppelin? It could Peace of Mind, but I don't know.
These 3 core moves makes it so Ferroglyph can pretty much break through any ranged wall.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Psycho Blast, Provoke, and Peace of Mind. Yep, get a Peace of Mind up, get your range defense higher, get a bulk up, get your melee defense higher. Like, I'm fine with it. This is good. This is a good spot. Number 9 may be a little too high, but I think I like this selection. I'm going to go with a 7 out of 10 here. This is a good spot. I probably wouldn't have placed it in my top 10 or top 5, but I can see this. This has a really... This could be placed on anyone's top 20. I like this. I like this pick. I like this pick.
Many different teams. It has a great speed here.
Yeah, 106 is pretty good.
It has great attack without boost, and of course with boosts. And then it has a solid enough range defense stat in order to set up and just overall kill the metagame.
Alright.
So the next Loomian on this list is going to be Joltu.
Joltu on 8? Really? Joltu at number 8? Now, the thing is, I don't disagree. I actually like Joltu. Joltu is a very good wall-breaking Loomian. It's a very good late-game sweeper, very good wall breaker, very good drudge Loomian. The problem is, like, the only reason I didn't add Joltu into my top 20 was because I had Aklos in my top 20. And in my opinion, I think Aklos is a tiny bit better of a drudge sweeper compared to Joltu. And this is the thing I do like about Loomian Legacy, is that there are a lot of Loomians that have similar roles, and a lot of them perform different roles. Like, I'm going to give you an example. So there's Joltu, who has Drudge, Primal Slash, Thunder Crash, and Earthquake. You have Seer Knight, which has Drudge, good melee defense, Barbs, Boiling Press, and Searing Steel. And then you have Aklos, who has great stats on both sides. And you have Icicle Traps, Driving Force, and even the potential chance to heal. the thing that makes all three of these Loomians is that they all have their different roles. Joltu has Ambush, which means that you're very threatened about swapping out. If you swap out predicting a Drudge and it goes for an attacking move, that opposing Loomian is dead, which makes Joltu very scary. But of course, it doesn't have the best stab. I mean, its best stab option is Thunder Crash, which recoils it. Then you have Aklos, who has great stats on both sides. You can use a Drudge, then a Rageful plushie, go up to +3. You have Ice Hammer, which doesn't make contact, and it's 95 power stab. Wave Wrecker has a chance to daze, and of course, its coverage options are probably better than Joltu. So you have Gnarly Gash for Lumami, and you have Rogue Assault for Tundralin. Yeah, I can't beat up Sidragon, but if you can get up to +2, you should be able to break it with Ice Hammer. And then you have Serenite, which Serenite's a lot slower, but it has the chance to run Barbs, it has Boiling Press, and of course that Awakening boost, which makes it hit the hardest, which is good. And it has Slapdown utility. And the thing is that Cotton Stoops isn't wrong by putting Joltu above Aklos. And I'm not wrong by putting Aklos above Joltu, because there's so many different ways to run these Loomians, and these Loomians are good at different things. It's very hard to decide on which of those Loomians are the best for their tier. So that's why I'm fine with him picking Joltu. The reason why I picked Aklos over Joltu, though, is because, again, I think it's a little bit better, I think it hits a little harder, and I think its stats are a little better, but the fact that Joltu has Ambush and Drudge and pretty good coverage with Earthquake and Bamboozled makes this thing pretty good. I actually like that he picked Joltu as his, Drudge Sweeper. He even mentioned this in his review when I talked about Aklos.
Joltu is what I was referencing to when I was talking about Helvantic, something that is better than Helvantic.
Better than Helvantic, though. That's interesting. I think it could be. It could be better than Helvantic. I think in this meta it might be. Like, back in January, I don't think it was. But in this meta I think it is a little better. If you can get a Drudge up, it could be very dangerous.
As an Electric-type wall breaker, and Joltu is basically it. Its coverage allows it to hit most of the metagame super effectively, and
Thunderclap, yeah, Thunderclap can flinch. I forgot about that. Oh, Thunderclap can flinch. You get one Drudge up and you flinch your way to victory. I forgot about that. Okay, now we're talking a little bit there. Okay, I understand why you wanted Joltu over Aklos now. It has a chance to flinch. Yeah, that's something that helps. Flinching is a better effect than daze.
And eliminates a lot of its previous answers that with the addition of Earthquake. What's also great about Joltu is that
okay, I'm gonna rank this a 6 out of 10, but because I do think the spot is a little too high. But if he talks about the chance of Thunderclap flinching after a Drudge, I'm putting it as an 8 out of 10. Okay, please talk about Thunder Crash, please. No, Thunderclap flinching, please. Please tell me I'm not going crazy.
Forces, specifically robust Gargoyle defense and Tundralin as for all you Loomians in order for your team to keep safe against other Joltus.
Yeah, Gargoyle defense. Okay, never mind. It's 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. Sorry. There are other Loomians that can wall it too. It isn't just those two. Like, Obsidian still does decently well. Obsidian can't swap into a Joltu, but if you can't swap a Joltu into an Obsidian neither. So, yeah.
What's also great about Joltu is that...
So, I'm going to rank this a 5 out of 10. I think I'm downgrading my vote here. I'm going 5 out of 10. If he talks about Thunderclap flinching, though, I'm giving it a 7 out of 10.
Is going to be utilizing a lot of this great damage, and you can play around Loomians that are trying to swap in on your coverage to waste your ambush ability using Drudge.
Yep.
Drudge turns you into one of the best sweepers in this metagame in terms of pure damage output and speed tier, and in combination with its speed tier and melee attack stat.
Yeah, Joltu has pretty good bulk as well. It can probably live one super effective hit, which is pretty scary.
As well as it's pretty...
I don't think it's quite as good as Aklos's, though, but still very good.
Pretty solid defenses. This makes Joltu one of the best Loomians in terms of wall breaking and sweeping, all packaged into one Loomian. Do note that it still doesn't want to take as much hits as it can, because while this bulk is definitely good, it doesn't want to take hits from most offensive Loomians, and its speed tier still gets outspent by a lot of offensive Loomians. However, Joltu and Eruptodon all get compensated with the move Baffle, bringing them into battle very efficient.
Yeah, Baffle. Yeah, Baffle is going nuts. The Baffle metagame is pretty good right now.
and especially for free, and to make up for their subpar speed tiers, they will able to outspeed whatever is in front of them because of Baffle's -1 speed, and more so on Eruptodon. It has great coverage.
Oh, he just moved to Eruptodon? I didn't even make my score. Okay, alright. So, Joltu. It didn't talk about Thunderclap flinching. 5 out of 10. Darn, if he talked about Thunderclap having the chance to flinch after a Drudge, I would have ranked it 7 out of 10, but he didn't. So it's only going to be 5 out of 10. But mainly because I do think Joltu's a little high. I do think 16 or probably 15 or 16 is a good spot for it. But yeah, that's where I'm at. So 5 out of 10 for number 8. And Soul Burst Eruptodon at 7 is interesting.
Great, better setup in terms of pure damage. And this, of course, forces Cleon or Jalusa on many teams. If your team isn't running that, you should be running a Fischl or an Akalos, which ultimately...
Or a Bezeldu. I don't know one would run it, but still. Bezeldu, funny.
...aren't really that great in this metagame. So Soul Burst Eruptodon is really great alongside with Joltu. The next Lumian on...
Oh, Eruptodon is at number 7. Okay, Oh, Eruptodon is...
This list is somewhat debatable on its placement, but I think it's really great. And of course, we're talking about Tatab.
Wait, hold on. So, did he talk about Eruptodon? 3. What Lumians did he put? What is his top 20? Does Eruptodon count on the list? I know I'm looking ahead, but... I'm confused. Is Soul Burst Eruptodon number 7? I'm gonna add extra Lumians. I think Soul Burst Eruptodon is number 7. If that is the case, 8 out of 10. But, okay. I think he's counting... Yeah, is Soul Burst Eruptodon on the list? Yeah, that's 6 through 10. So yeah, he counted Soul Burst Eruptodon on the list as 7. At 7, yeah, at 7. So, 8 out of 10. I think it should be a little higher, but let's see what the rest of your picks are.
We're talking about Tatab. Tatab has stayed to be one of the best offensive Lumians.
Yep, Tatab, OP. I agree. I like the spot. Maybe a little too high, but yeah, I'm fine with this.
In this metagame, specifically because of how hard it can hit with its stabs and the ability to cripple its answers with poison and barter. Usually, something like Tatab, which I did mention in my tier list video before, your snack is a common swap in for this, which might be bad because your snack is just so great in this metagame.
But you click poison and you barter boots to it.
As a baffle, but Tatab has the ability to punish your snacks with barter or poison. This also goes for its other answers such as Obsidian and Bar Blast, as well as other niche answers.
Well, you can't poison Bar Blast, but you can barter boots on it. And plus, actually no, you just click Timber Thrash if you're predicting a Bar Blast, because you two-shot it.
Answers like Harvest. This makes it so good for Tatab right now because it can cripple its answers and it hits very hard. And in combination with the specialty boots, you can be one of the hardest hitting Lumians on the team, while also being the fastest Lumian on the team. This is further compounded with the fact of its great speed here of 104
Yeah, 104 speed with 126 melee attack with 120 power stab and awakening. That's what makes Tatab so dangerous. It two-shots most toxic types, even though toxic types resist you. That's how hard Tatab hits.
Without boots, being able to outspeed pretty much every wall breaker, and its melee attack stat of 126, just like Joltu's, except it has the rallyable personality in order to hit so hard.
I like this spot. I'm going with 8 out of 10 with Tatab. Not 10 out of 10 because I think Tatab is not quite number 6. I think Tatab's more like 8 through 10. I put it at 11 on my list. But yeah, I think 8 through 10 I think is the best spot to put it. But I'll go with 8 out of 10. Maybe I'll go... Actually, no, I'll go 9 out of 10. I'll be nice. I'll go 9 out of 10. Because this is almost the perfect spot. Tatab deserves to be on the list. 100%. No doubts.
And closing off the top 4 through 10 Lumians...
4 through 10? It's 5. It's 5.
It's really not a competition
at 4
this
through
point.
10, okay.
It's going to be your snack.
Okay, yep, your snack. Okay, that's... Wait, 4 through 10? Wait. Which Lumian am I missing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm missing something. Well,
through 10 Lumians, it's really not a competition at this point. It's going to be your snack. Your snack is probably the most influential Lumian.
It's, you know why it's the most influential Lumian in the game? I can't speak. It's because he's named Cotton Stoops.
In this metagame, specifically because it can utilize Baffle. Baffle is one of the strongest attributes to have in this metagame because you can enable so much offensive pressure using the Lumians such as Joltu, Eruptodon, like I said before. You can even use other stuff such as Htic, Falkyrie, Dakuda, Colossotrops, and even more to enable pressure so much easier. Because it does have the tank ability, even if you're invested in one defense, and this is going to change with the PVP 2.0 update, you're able to take hits from pretty much anything in this metagame.
Yep. Also, Baffle's literally the metagame for your snack, and your snack is the best Baffle Lumian. So, yep. This is why Baffle, that's why your snack is this high on the list, and I actually like this. Again, I don't think I would have put it this high on the list because, you know my problems with your snack. It doesn't really have any offensive pressure, and if it's down to just your snack and the rest of someone's team, your snack's losing. So but for the role that it does, it's the best bridge in all of Lumian Legacy. I don't know if number 4 is too high or too low. Too low would be my opinion. But no, too high is my opinion for your snack. So I think 5 is too high. I'm going with a 8 out of 10 with your snack. I like it. I like the selection. I wouldn't have ranked your snack this high, but I think every other PvPer would. Like, that's what I'm trying to say here.
Also great about your snack at this moment is that it does have the ability to break clutch plushies or clutch abilities. Which
that helps. Having priority does help. And slapdown utility. You also have fadeaway, but fadeaway's not good on your snack because, again, it doesn't do damage.
Shadow Sprint, it has slapdown to remove items, so you can pretty much use slapdown whenever your tank isn't broken.
Let's move on to the next pick, because I think we all know what we're going to talk about with your snack.
Of the list, or in the top 5, is Soulburst in this metagame at this moment. Alright, so the number 5 Lumian of the list, or in the top 5, is
you had 16 Lumians and 24! Oh my gosh, so is this just another number 5? We're just gonna, you know what? We're gonna keep ranking this how it goes.
Is Soulburst Gasstroke. Soulburst Gasstroke, everyone knows how great this Lumian is.
Yep, Soulburst Gasstroke is great, and it's pretty hard to play around if you don't have the right Lumians. You kind of are forced to run Provoke or Drive Beast Force in order to get rid of the Lumian, and even then, it could damage you with Stratagem, it can poison you, it can set up Tamps and hit hard in return. It's definitely one of the best Soulbursts in all of Lumian Legacy. It's definitely very high. I do think Soulburst Eruptodon is a little better, so I am going to rank it a little lower. I'm going to rank it at 7 out of 10, but I like this pick. It's a good pick.
This Lumian, when not paired against a Provoke user, which is not that many, or an Ice-type user, Gasstroke pretty much just sits. First off, let's going to be talking about Seer Knight. Going to be sweeping them. So before I can talk about the top 3 Lumians, I must...
Oh yeah, so Gasstroke is number 4. I got it right! Oh! Okay, so Gasstroke is number 4, and not number 5. Woo! Okay, I'm not crazy. Let's go.
First discuss the honorable mentions.
Alright.
First off, let's gonna be talking about Seer Knight and Stratosaur.
Yep, I agree with those as honorable mentions. I will definitely agree, going back on my list, I ranked Stratosaur a little too high. I do think it's still top 20. But I don't know, having Soulburst Eruptodon lower than Soulburst Stratosaur just seems pretty rough. I probably would keep it out of my top 20 nowadays. I do think number 5 is a little too high for Soulburst Stratosaur. I think it would be 18 or 19. if I would make the top 20 nowadays, I would flip Solar Seraptodon and Solar Stratosaur spots, probably. That would be what I would do.
One of the better metal types in this metagame. Serenite is ultimately one of the better metal types in my opinion, especially because it has great matchups. Like a metal type, it has the matchups against Charonix.
Yep, Serenite, I agree with this pick. Serenite is a great Loomian, and it has so many different roles it can run. Like, the fact that I rank this as the number 5 starter, but this had so many things. In this metagame, it's so good because of its defensive typing. It has 3 quad resistances, and it has Barbs and Drudge, which helps it up so much. So that is his opinion on Serenite. Let's go to Stratosaur.
Taken advantage so easily by fire types and anything that can resist its coverage. That on its own makes Serenite an honorable mention and not a top 20 Loomian. Other than that, we do have Stratosaur, which for the same reasons as Serenite, this does get exploited so easily, specifically by electric types, so it won't really touch up on there as well. Pyrolin is also a surprise pick that I really wanted to put in the top 20, but
yeah, I put this at number 4 on my original list because Pyrolin kind of did a little bit of everything. But honestly, looking back, I put Pyrolin a little too high. Pyrolin is still very good, and it's still a stable range tank that can be very dangerous. Pyrolin is still a monster, and it's still... The fact that it's off the top 20, though, I don't like that. Maybe it could have been 16 through 20, maybe. I don't know. I disagree with this. What else is an honorable mention? Barblast?
Ultimately a pretty good Loomian. However, just because of Obsidian being preferred more on more balance.
That, and also the existence of Dokomori, and everyone running Dokomori. And of course...
that this is worth at all using when you do have Obsidian or Tundulin, depending on your playstyle.
Thing is, Barblast has poison and icicle traps. There are reasons to use Barblast over Obsidian and Tundulin, and if you need a more overall tank, Barblast is better for that.
Well, Imperior is also going to be an honorable mention.
Yep, this is the best spot to put Imperior. Best spot. Best spot. Because Imperior is still controversial because its resentful ability is just insane right now. Its resentful ability is broken. Like... This is the best spot to put it because you don't know where to put it on the list, and you don't know where to put it on the list because everything else about Imperior isn't that good. Like, it's so tough to talk about Imperior. Of course, there's Mutagon. Now, let's get back to the list. Let's get out of the honorable mention. So, yeah.
Let's get right into it. The first Loomian is obviously going to be... So, let's talk about the top 3 Loomians in Loomian Legacy.
Here we are, the top 3!
Alright, so the top 3 Loomians. Let's get right into it.
1 hour later, and we're into the top 3.
The first Loomian is obviously going to be Gargolem Defense.
Yep. I placed it in my top 10. Yep. I like this. I'm going 9 out of 10. I don't think it's 10 out of 10 because I do... Is it 10 out of 10? I mean, I don't know. I'm going to go 9 out of 10. The reason why I'm going 9 out of 10 because there's a couple Loomians that have Ice-type moves, and Ice-type moves do beat Gargolem. I don't think it's number 3, but it definitely has that potential. It's insane. Gargolem defense form is nuts. Barbs, Icicle Traps, Slap Down Utility, Driving Force, Empathize, Mudslide to get rid of Barbs, Gust to get rid of Barbs. Like, Return Descender to do extra damage. Like, there's a lot of different ways to run. You can run this with Bane of Haste as well. Like, this thing is nuts. I love Gargolem defense form, and I like this being in the number 3. I'm going 9 out of 10, though, because, again, the Ice-type weakness does suck, and a lot of Loomians do have Icicle Traps nowadays. But, yeah, I like this.
Gargolem Defense has cemented itself to be one of the strongest Loomians in this, or not strongest, but one of the bulkiest Loomians in this metagame that can have itself placed in many different teams.
The thing that makes Gargolem defense form so good as well is that you can invest its defenses on one side, but overall, it's so bulky on both sides. You can run a melee defensive Gargolem and a range defense Gargolem. You could run a melee defensive one, it still tank hits on the range side. You could run a range defensive Gargolem, it still tank hits on the melee side. And the Earth-Air typing defensively is very good. It only has 3 weaknesses. Quad weakness to Ice and a weakness to Plant, which isn't that good. But the Water weakness does kind of suck a little bit. But even then, it can still live most super effective hits by Water types. Unless they set up a Magnify
and work very efficiently. Gargolem Defense has relegated itself to be one of the best hazard removers, especially because of its air typing and immunities and
yeah, with Mudslide and Gust, it's really good. the biggest thing you got to be careful for is trying to mudslide other Gargolem defense forms, because that's what a lot of people do. I tend to see that all the time. That's the reason I run icicle traps on my Gargolem defense form, and that's so I can other Gargolem defense forms can't swap in on me. And even if they do, you know, I can driving force them out. So personally, if I would run a Gargolem defense form to beat other Gargolem defense forms, put a little bit more speed on it. Like put 8 speed TPs to outspeed other Gargolem defense forms, because if you can get your driving force out first to get their Gargolem defense form out of the game, that's a huge deal for you.
And all that stuff. Being able to pretty much gust off.
Well, that's a weird set. Driving Force, Gust, Barbs, and Empathize. But yeah, that's the thing. It also has so many good moves. It has Driving Source, Icicle Traps, Barbs, Gust, Mudslide, Slapdown, Empathize, and the Immunize ability is one of the best abilities for it.
Off of most hazards.
Like 9 out of 10, I think it's the best score I can get this. I like this. I don't think there's anything else to say about Gargolem defense. Let's move on to the next spot.
And distributed very well. This makes Gargolem defense a very strong and very splashable Loomian that you can fit on many different teams. Other than that, the number 2 slot is going to go to Glaciadia.
10, 10, 10, 10, 10 out of 10. Yep, second best Loomian in the game that doesn't count Ubers. Just like me, I put Glaciadia in the top 5. I put Glaciadia in the top 3. I put it at number 3, with number 1 being Tyranix and number 2 being Metronet. And Metronet's an Uber. Yep, 10. I 100% agree with this.
And Glaciadia, ever since release, has made itself very clear that it's probably the best sweeper in the entire game.
Yep. This is good. I like this. I don't think there's anything else we can explain here. This is one of the best Loomians, one of the best wall breaker Loomians in the entire game. And it also has other moves like Icicle Traps that it can use, so it can be used as a fast traps Loomian. And you can even use this with boots to outspeed other boots Loomians. Yep, this Loomian, nothing else to say here. This is one of the best Loomians in all of Loomian Legacy. Yep, nothing else to say. This thing is insane.
Glaciadia is a threat that is going to be threatening any sort of competitive team.
Yep.
And finally, number 1, it's going to go to Charonix.
Yep! 10, 10, 10! You nailed the top 3! Just like me, he nailed the top 3. I feel like the top 3 or top 5 Loomians are always very easy to rank. But yep, Charonix. I mean, you could literally run everything with this. It has the best defensive typing in all of Loomian Legacy. Has pretty good bulk on both sides. Not amazing bulk, but good bulk with its defensive typing. Has the move Spite to destroy tanks. Has Flash and Flee to pivot. Has Nova Blast to hit hard. Has Peace of Mind and Magnify with Lightspeed Ray, which is OP. Frost Beam coverage to hit those pesky air types, and Soulburst Gas Stroke, which is OP. You have Spectral Burst. You have the Fog Weather, which is the best weather in all of Loomian Legacy. And it has really good abilities in Prismatic that gives you a light type immunity to soak other Flash and Fleas. And you have Reaper ability, which can make this a very good late game sweeper. No questions asked, this Loomian is the best Loomian in all of Loomian Legacy. I agree with this. Personally, I do think it isn't the best Loomian anymore. I think it's like number 3. But, because, again, it's once it loses Lightspeed Ray, I don't think it's going to be as high, but still. I agree with this. Number 1, I'm fine with this. Best Loomian in the game? Yep. 10 out of 10.
Who wouldn't put Charonix in their top 20?
I mean, I put Charonix in the top 20. Who wouldn't? I agree. I agree.
Especially in the top 3 spot. Charonix can fit on pretty much any team like Gargolem defense.
Every team could use a Charonix. Like, I use Charonix so much just because it's so easy to fit. And it hits so hard. Like, it does everything.
And unlike Gargolem defense, it does actually have offensive pressure.
Offensive pressure, and Magnify, and Lightspeed Ray, and all the other moves it has.
Despite which, like I discussed in my Charonix analysis video, pretty much destroys any sort of metal type video.
Let's get to the end.
If you want to argue with me down in the comment section below, go ahead. I really don't care, but of course, anything you can add is always useful. And yeah, thank you for watching through to the end, or you just skipped, or whatever. That's pretty much all I can say. I'll be making more videos in the future, so like and subscribe if you want to stay tuned to that. And yeah, this is Cotton Stoops, signing off to remind you that Zulong is still a dumpster fire.
Epic! Epic! So yeah, we have our list. Now, let's talk about, before I add up the scores together, before I add up the scores, I'm going to talk about some of the crucial Loomians that might have been missed on this list. The biggest one I'm noticing is Novadius in Uber. One of the first things I'm trying to say. No, it's not. It's not in the Uber tier. That's a Loomian that I would put in my top 10. Novadius is insane. The fact that Novadius isn't on the list is really bad. That's probably the worst miss. Also, Soulburst Icicle. Soulburst Icicle not being on the list is interesting too, because the fact that Soulburst Icicle makes Bane of Haste a really good playstyle, and personally I do think that is something that could definitely be used. What are some other Loomians that might have been missed on the top of my head? I'm trying to think. What other Loomians that could have been missed? Barbadger. Barbadger's another one. I don't know. I understand why he doesn't have Barbadger in it if he has Joltu and Helvantic in it. And Vesperatu not being on it. Yeah, Vesperatu. Yeah, that's fine. I'm fine with Vesperatu being off the list. That's not terrible. But I don't know. Zulong over Vesperatu is interesting. Because Vesperatu hits very hard. Yeah, that's very interesting, actually. Benelin not being an honorable mention, I guess. Not many big misses. I think the biggest miss Cotton Stoops has is Novadius not being on the list. I do think Novadius has top 10 potential. And while it isn't as good as Glaciadia, I think it definitely deserves top 10 potential because it has that extra coverage. It has the unpredictability of hitting on both sides, and I think it's the best mixed attacking Loomian in all of Loomian Legacy. So I think that's the biggest miss. The biggest miss is with, of course, Novadius. Alright, now let's get a calculator out, and let's rank all of these scores together, and let's see what overall score Cotton Stoops gets. So, alright. We're gonna do... How am I gonna do this, actually? Let's do 8 plus 7 plus... So 8 plus 7 plus 9 plus 7 plus 6 plus 10 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 9 plus 3 plus 7 plus 5 plus 8 plus 9 plus 8 plus 7 plus 9 plus 10 and plus 10. And yeah, he actually nailed his top 10 besides Jalusa being in the top 10. I think his top 10 is pretty good. Oh yeah, Joltu as well. Joltu shouldn't be in the top 10. But I'm fine with it on the list, so that's why it's still 5. So that gives it a score of 147 out of 200, which, what does that make it percent-wise? 73. So I think 7.3 is his overall score. Am I right? Did I do the math right? I'm bad at maths, I know. Oh, it rounds up to 7.4, actually. I think 7.4 is his score. 7.35. I had a score of 6.2, so I was overall a lot worse than this, which is interesting, but it's fine. I think Cotton Stoops has a pretty good list. I think this is a very good list. 7.35 out of 10. I hope that's how I did the math. I hope that's the math I did correctly. Or would I do that divided by 20? No, it would be divided by 20. So it would be 147 divided by 20. There it is. Yep, same score. 7.25. Yep, 7.35. That is his overall score out of 10. Congratulations, you made a very good list. I am thinking about redoing my top 20 list because I do think there's a couple Loomians that I miss and a couple Loomians that are way too low that I would definitely change my opinions to. But yeah, overall Cotton Stoops, very good video, very good list, very good top 20 PvP Loomians list, and I will definitely say it's definitely better than mine. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will leave his channel and link to the video in the description below. He makes awesome videos. You should definitely watch them, and I will see y'all all later. Bye-bye!